One of the most famous figures in the ancient world was Alexander the Great, and we want to assess who he was and what impact he had on the ancient world. Um, Alexander was from a kingdom to the north of Greece called Macedonia. Macedonians were sort of cousins of the Greeks. They spoke Greek, they worshipped the Greek gods, but they didn't have city-states. Instead, they had a large, mostly rural kingdom. And the Greeks mostly sort of looked down on the Macedonians, sort of their backcountry cousins. But at the same time, they played an important role, especially during the Peloponnesian War, where they were allies of Sparta. And at that time, the king of Macedon or Macedonia was a man named Philip the Great. Philip was ambitious and he was innovative. He changed the style of warfare that he used. He used phalanxes just like the other Greeks did, but he decided to double the length of the spears and increase the size of the phalanx. And also he used cavalry. With cavalry, you could bring horses alongside the other side and the flanks of a phalanx, which was really the weakest point. And with that new technology, Philip very quickly expanded his empire, and the Macedonians conquered almost all of Greece under Philip's time. After Philip died rather early, his son Alexander became king. Alexander was already very well trained. He served with his father in a number of battles. He was a skilled general, and he had been educated by Aristotle, one of the brilliant minds of the ancient world. And very quickly, Alexander decided it was his destiny to conquer really what he saw as the whole world. So in Alexander's time, after the conquest of Greece that his father undertook, he decided to invade Persia, mostly as revenge for the Persian Wars and the attempted destruction of Athens. So he conquered Persia, and then he went down and also conquered Egypt, where he was crowned as pharaoh. And he even went as far as Mesopotamia and even India. So really at the time, this was the largest empire in the world, and it encompassed all these different cultures. And as he went along, he built lots of cities. A lot of cities actually called Alexandria after himself. Most famously was the Alexandria in Egypt, which would later become the center of the Greek world. Alexander's empire did not last very long. He died very young at the age of 32, really before he had a chance to do much ruling. And when he died, his generals split the empire among themselves. So you actually had separate kingdoms. The Seleucid kingdoms between Egypt and Mesopotamia, Pergamum up here in what had been the western part of Persia, Macedon or Macedonia, and the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt. But maybe more importantly than Alexander's conquests, this really starts a period of cultural renewal for the Greeks. This is called the Hellenistic Era. Hellenistic means Greek-like or Greek-ish. And as Alexander went along, he took bits of culture from Egypt and from Persia and from India and blended them with Greek culture. And this results in really a cultural revival, sort of a new golden age for the Mediterranean and Greek-speaking world. Among some of the many achievements of the Hellenistic era was the great library at Alexandria in Egypt, which housed a huge number of texts from across the ancient world. The revival of literature, like Jason and the Argonauts, one of the other famous Greek tales. The creation of a lot of tools, the creation of mathematics and geometry, and a lot of other innovators. So really, if anything, Alexander's maybe greatest contribution to the ancient world was this revival of culture called the Hellenistic Age.